All right, strap in, everyone. Let's take a deep dive with Robert Greene.
Robert Greene, yeah.
His 48 Laws of Power,
Uh-huh.
specifically from his CDs 7 and 8,
Okay.
where he kind of goes into some
Right.
pretty interesting and unconventional,
Yeah.
almost sneaky strategies.
Yeah. He does get into that.
So think of this as like
Yeah.
building your toolkit for navigating the world.
I like that. Yeah, building a toolkit.
Right.
And the thing that I find interesting about these laws that he lays out is
Yeah.
that he doesn't shy away from this sort of
Yeah.
the cunning aspect of power.
Right.
He's pulling from history's playbook. He's using all of these historical examples
Yeah.
to show how these laws have been wielded.
Right.
And honestly, sometimes weaponized.
Okay, so let's get into this toolkit.
Let's crack it open,
Right.
see what's inside.
So first up is law number 38.
Okay.
Think as you like, but behave like others.
Yeah.
Now, doesn't that sound a little bit like being a yes man?
You know, it's easy to misinterpret that one, right?
Right.
Thinking that this is about blind conformity.
Yeah.
But Greene is highlighting something far more strategic.
Okay.
It's the power of blending in, of understanding social norms,
Right.
not necessarily to lose yourself in them,
Yeah.
but to choose your moments
Right.
of disruption wisely.
Okay, so it's kind of like you're playing the game
Yes.
for a while.
Right.
Until you have enough
Okay.
clout to change the rule.
Precisely. Strategic conformity.
Okay.
And he uses a great story to illustrate this.
Okay.
Asanius, the Spartan general.
Oh, yeah.
So after these major victories against the Persians,
Uh-huh.
he kind of gets a little too comfortable maybe with the Persian culture,
Yeah.
starts adopting their customs, their leadership style.
Right.
And his fellow Spartans, you know what? They were not having it.
They were not having it now.
Not at all.
Yeah, I remember reading about this, and they basically trapped him in a temple
They did.
and starved him to death.
Starved him to death.
Talk about dramatic exit.
I know. What a way to go, huh?
Right.
So, and this is important because
Yeah.
Pausanias's downfall wasn't simply his appreciation for
Right.
another culture.
Right.
It was the way he flaunted it.
Yeah.
It created this perception of disloyalty.
Right.
And this is a reminder that that kind of social awareness,
Yeah.
navigating social expectations,
Uh-huh.
is key to wielding power.
So it's not about necessarily being fake,
Right.
but it's picking your battles.
100%. Yeah, picking your battles. And to bring this a little closer to home,
Okay.
you know, a more modern example, Greene talks about Jonas Salk,
Okay.
developed the polio vaccine,
Yeah.
but he kind of made a mistake. He went public with his findings before really going through the proper scientific protocol, you know,
Wow.
peer review, all that stuff.
Right.
And while, yes, it was a revolutionary discovery,
Yes.
He ruffled a lot of feathers
yeah,
in the scientific community.
well, he made himself a star
He did.
before they were really ready to acknowledge that.
Exactly.
And he paid a price for that, I think, right?
He did.
Yeah,
Faced years of isolation, difficulty securing funding.
right.
It was all because he didn't really play the game.
Yeah,
So it's interesting, right,
yeah,
that even brilliance has to be strategically unveiled
yeah.
in order to gain wide acceptance.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Sometimes playing the game for a while builds the influence you need
Yeah,
to change it later.
yeah.
True power isn't always about immediate rebellion.
Okay.
Right.
So Law 38,
Yeah.
kind of play it cool.
Play it cool. Know when to make your move
Right, exactly.
and when to make your move. All right, what's next in our power toolkit?
All right, let's go to Law 39. Stir up waters to catch fish.
Okay. Now, this sounds a little
Right.
Machiavellian, wouldn't you say?
This one has some, yeah.
I'm envisioning mind games going on here.
Yeah.
Right.
So this one's about strategically provoking emotions in others to gain an advantage.
Okay.
Greene argues that those emotional outbursts, you know, they're often a sign of weakness.
So it's like you're staying cool
Yeah.
while they're losing your mind.
That's it. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
He uses the story of Haile Selassie,
Okay.
his rise to power in Ethiopia.
Right.
So Selassie, he very cunningly provoked his rival, Ras Gugsa, into a rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
But he did it in such a way to ensure the rebellion's failure.
Wow.
Right? So Gugsa's anger, his pride,
Yeah.
led him right into Selassie's trap.
Okay, so he orchestrated his rival's downfall.
He did,
Yeah,
in a way, by understanding his psychology.
Right. It's like there's a theme going on here
Yes.
where you're using your opponent's weaknesses against them.
You're picking up on it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's about understanding that this is a game, right?
Okay.
Power dynamics are a game of psychology. And, although I think it's very important to make the distinction that it's not about,
Right.
manipulating people into self-destruction.
What?
It's about recognizing that we all have vulnerabilities.
Right.
And those vulnerabilities can be exploited.
So this is a reminder to stay cool under pressure.
Yeah.
Be aware
Absolutely.
how emotions can cloud judgment.
Yes.
Don't make rash decisions.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And this
yeah.
is invaluable, especially when you're dealing with difficult people.
Okay.
Speaking of which, this next law is about a subject that I think hits close to home for a lot of us.
Right.
Finances.
Finances, okay.
Yeah.
Budgeting.
Well, it's a little more philosophical than that.
Okay.
It's Law 40. Despise the free lunch.
Despise the free lunch. Okay. Now, what is that all about?
This is about the psychology of obligation.
Okay.
Greene argues that all those free offers,
Yeah.
those innocent free offers,
Uh-huh.
they often come with strings attached. He wants us to recognize the psychological price tag
Okay.
that can be attached to bargains, favors.
So like those free trials
Yes.
that end up costing you a fortune if you
Okay,
forget
if
to
you
cancel it.
cancel, right.
Yeah.
And it's about recognizing that true power, true freedom
Right.
comes from maintaining your independence.
Okay.
And he outlines a few archetypes that we should all be wary of.
Oh, I love archetypes. Tell me more about these.
Okay, so there's the greedy fish,
Uh-huh.
always fixated on accumulating wealth, often at the expense of relationships or ethics.
Okay.
Then you've got the bargain demon,
Yeah.
always chasing the lowest price, even if it means sacrificing quality or their time.
Oh, I know a few bargain demons.
Right, I think we all do.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's the sadist,
Okay.
derives pleasure from using their financial advantage
Right.
to control and manipulate others.
Right.
And then the indiscriminate giver,
Okay.
using generosity to buy affection or mask their own insecurity.
And, yeah, I think we've all encountered at least one of those
Right,
in our lives.
for sure.
Yeah.
And to bring this to life, he tells the story of the Duke and Duchess of Marlborough,
Oh, yeah.
emphasizing the Duchess's destructive, let's just say, financial behavior
Right.
during the construction of Blenheim Palace.
Wasn't the architect driven to ruin
He was.
by her constant demands
Yeah.
and budget cuts?
That's right. So her financial sadism, let's call it,
Yeah.
toward John Vanbrugh, the architect,
Right? Yeah.
highlights how even when you're the one holding the purse strings,
Yeah.
using money as a weapon can backfire.
Yeah.
Decades of construction,
Oh, no.
strained relationships,
Right.
and the poor guy died before he ever saw his creation completed.
Wow. Makes you wonder if she ever regretted her behavior.
You would hope so, but who knows?
What a cautionary tale.
Right.
Right.
So, Law 40, be mindful of the hidden costs,
Okay.
the potential pitfalls when it comes to money.
Yeah.
True power often lies in maintaining your independence
Okay.
and making choices that are aligned with your values,
Right.
not just your wallet.
So maybe that free lunch isn't so free after all.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
All right. On to the next tool in our power toolkit. What do we got?
This one is for anyone who's felt the pressure of living in someone else's shadow.
Ooh, okay.
Law 41. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes.
Ooh, I like that. So this is about carving your own path.
Yes.
Yeah.
Greene explores the challenge of surpassing a successful parent or a mentor,
Okay.
a predecessor.
Right.
And he uses a classic example for this.
Okay.
Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great, yeah.
We all know about his conquests,
Uh-huh.
his empire.
Right.
But I think what often gets overlooked is the rivalry he had with his father,
Right.
King Philip of Macedon.
Philip was a powerful guy in his own right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very powerful. And so Alexander wasn't content just to win battles.
Right.
He wanted to win differently than his father.
Yep.
Proved that his methods were superior.
Uh-huh.
So this rivalry fueled his ambition,
Right.
led him to conquer Persia,
Yeah.
push the boundaries of the known world,
Right.
achieve things that Philip could have only dreamed of.
So it's not just about achieving greatness.
No.
It's about establishing your own
Exactly.
a unique legacy.
Right.
And Greene points to specific moments in Alexander's life
Okay.
that highlight this drive,
Uh-huh.
taming the wild horse Bucephalus
Yeah.
that no one else could do.
Yeah.
His public defiance of his father,
Right.
cutting the Gordian knot.
Right. Cutting the Gordian knot. Yeah.
These were all symbolic acts of rebellion,
Yeah.
of this young man determined to forge his own path,
Yeah.
even if it meant exceeding his father's achievements.
I'm sensing a pattern here
Yeah.
in these laws that a lot of it is about psychology,
Yes.
understanding the motivations
A little bit.
of yourself and
Yeah.
others,
Yeah.
and the vulnerabilities. That's exactly it. It's not just about outward actions. It's about our inner world,
Right.
our desires, fears,
Yeah.
need for recognition.
It's making me rethink what I thought I knew about power.
I know. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a whole different lens
Okay.
to look at it through.
Let's keep going. What's next?
This next one's a bit more strategic.
Okay.
It's about understanding group dynamics.
Okay.
Law 42, strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter.
Strike the shepherd. Okay.
Yeah.
Now break down the whole shepherd-sheep analogy for me.
All right, so imagine you have a flock of sheep.
Okay.
They're generally content to follow the shepherd, right?
Yeah.
Even if he leads them astray.
Right.
But remove the shepherd,
Yeah.
the flock becomes disoriented, vulnerable,
Right.
easier to control.
So this is about identifying the key influencer
Yes,
in any group, the shepherd,
the shepherd,
and neutralizing their influence.
100%.
Okay.
Greene uses the example of ostracism. In ancient Athens,
Right.
Athenian citizens could vote to banish
Right.
anyone they perceived as a threat to the city's unity.
To city's unity, right.
Even if that person hadn't actually broken any laws.
So it's like a preemptive strike,
It was, yeah.
removing a source of disruption
Exactly.
before it can cause too much damage.
Yes, and it's fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Because they ostracize people like Aristides,
Right.
known for his fairness,
Yeah.
Themistocles, brilliant general,
Right.
not because they were evil, but
Yeah.
because their influence was perceived as a potential threat.
Wow, that's a bold move, though.
It is bold.
That seems like a very risky strategy.
Right.
Right.
Because what if you misjudge
Yeah.
someone's influence
Yeah.
and you end up creating more chaos
Exactly.
by removing them?
Yeah.
And you know what? The Athenians themselves discovered that.
Oh.
When they try to ostracize this guy named Hyperbolus, known more for his foolishness than
Yeah.
his influence,
Right.
attempt failed,
Yeah.
marked the beginning of the end
Right.
for ostracism in Athens.
So it's a reminder that this law,
Yes.
like all of them, I think,
all of Greene's laws.
needs to be applied with a very
Yes.
nuanced understanding
So once, absolutely.
of the context.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the potential consequence.
For players
Yeah, 100%.
and consequences.
Yeah.
Right.
So it highlights the importance of
Yeah.
being a really shrewd observer
Yeah.
of human behavior.
Okay.
Understanding those power dynamics, those unspoken power dynamics
Right.
that exist within every group.
This is blowing my mind. Okay. What other power tools do we have to uncover?
Let's get into persuasion.
Okay.
All right. This
Okay.
is Law 43. Work on the hearts and minds of others.
Okay. This sounds a little touchy-feely.
A little touchy-feely, right?
Yeah.
But Greene's approach, it's more strategic than that.
Right.
It's not just about being nice,
Right.
or giving motivational speeches.
Right.
True power lies in winning people over,
Okay.
not forcing them to comply.
So understanding what makes people tick.
Yeah.
What motivates
What
them,
motivates them, yeah.
inspires them.
Inspires them, exactly.
Right.
It's recognizing that human beings are emotional creatures.
Yeah.
And that lasting influence comes from appealing to their hearts as well as their minds.
You can force somebody to do something,
Right.
but you can't force them to believe in it.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Hmm.
Force versus belief.
Right.
To illustrate this, he contrasts two very different figures,
Okay.
Marie Antoinette
Yeah.
and Louis XIV.
Okay.
Now, Marie Antoinette, as we know,
Right.
she was the French queen
Yes.
who became this symbol of extravagance,
Right.
disconnect from the people,
Mm.
living in a bubble of luxury,
Right.
completely oblivious to the growing unrest
Yeah.
that led to the revolution. And
Oh.
when the revolution came,
Right.
she had no one,
Yeah. She had no one. Yeah.
to come to her defense.
What a cautionary tale.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Power without genuine connection is fleeting.
Yeah.
It doesn't last.
It doesn't last. Yeah.
Louis XIV,
Yeah.
absolute monarch, right?
Right.
But understood the importance of cultivating relationships,
Okay.
even with those in lower positions of power.
Hmm.
He was known for his strategic friendliness,
Okay.
his accessibility,
Right.
making people feel seen and heard,
Yeah.
even if he ultimately held all the power.
So not just being powerful, but strategic
Yes.
about your relationship.
Strategic in your relationships, yes. Even with those who seem less powerful than you.
Interesting.
It is. And there's another great example he talks about.
Okay.
Mao Zedong.
Okay.
Despite all his ruthlessness,
Right.
he was a master
Right.
of emotional appeals.
Yeah.
He understood the power of shared values,
Right.
common purpose,
Yeah.
galvanizing the masses.
Right.
He connected with the Chinese people on this visceral level,
Right.
inspiring a level of devotion that few leaders
Yeah.
ever achieved.
Yeah.
So Law 43 is not just about charisma, likability.
Right.
It's about understanding the deeper psychological and emotional needs of others and using that knowledge to build genuine connection and influence.
Yeah.
So there you go.
This is giving me a whole new perspective.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, on leadership.
Uh-huh.
Okay, what's the final tool in our power toolkit?
Okay, let's wrap up this first section with a law that gets into the psychology of manipulation. Okay.
No.
Law 44. Disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect.
Mirror effect. Okay.
Yeah.
This sounds fascinating and dangerous at the same time.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So this one's all about using mirroring as a tool to influence.
Okay.
It's kind of like holding up this warped mirror to someone, right?
Right.
Maybe it's the narcissist effect.
Okay.
Showing them a grandiose reflection.
Right.
Blinding them to your true intentions.
So reflecting back what they want to see.
Yes.
Their insecurities.
Insecurities. Yes.
Idealized image of themselves.
Their idealized image.
To manipulate them.
Yeah. It's powerful. And Greene breaks down the mirror effect into 4 main types.
Okay.
And each one has its own unique application.
I'm loving this categorization.
Okay, so first we have the neutralizing effect, where you're basically mirroring your opponent's actions to confuse them, obscure your true strategy.
Okay. Sneaky.
A little sneaky, right?
Like a judo move.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Psychological judo.
Yeah.
And then there's the narcissist effect.
Okay.
You tap into someone's vanity, reflect back their desires, their values, their inflated self.
Right, so you give them a dose of their own medicine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Using their ego against them.
Okay.
Okay, next we have the moral effect.
Okay.
This is about mirroring back someone's negative behavior to teach them a lesson.
Okay, so kind of a tough love.
Tough love, exactly.
Okay.
Make them experience the consequences of their actions, hopefully prompting some self-reflection.
Okay.
And then finally, there's the hallucinatory effect.
Okay.
This one is about creating this believable imitation of something or someone to deceive.
Wow, next level manipulation.
It is. Think of con artists, right?
Right.
Creating these elaborate facades.
Right.
Spies assuming false identities.
Yeah.
Can be very powerful, but it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The key is to be aware of how it works.
Yeah.
To recognize when it's being used against you and to use it judiciously, always being mindful of the ethical implications.
This is making me rethink all my interactions.
I know, right?
We've covered a lot of ground here.
Right.
But it feels like this toolkit's just getting started.
Oh, we're just getting started.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to explore in Greene's world.
All right, folks, we're going to pause our deep dive here.
Okay.
But don't worry, we'll be back soon.
We'll be back.
To unlock even more secrets of power.
Yes.
And influence.
More to come. Welcome back. I'm excited to keep going with these laws of power.
Yeah, me too. It's like we're getting this crash course.
I know, right?
On human behavior, right?
It is. Decoding the human psyche.
Okay, where do we pick up our power toolkit?
Let's explore a law that, might seem a little counterintuitive, especially in our fast-paced world. Law 45. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once.
Never reform too much at once.
Yeah.
This is pretty relevant, I think, in today's world.
Very relevant.
Where we're constantly told to disrupt and innovate.
Adapt or die.
Right. Adapt or die. But Greene's kind of cautioning against going too phased here.
Yes. He's reminding us that change, even when it's positive, it can be met with resistance.
Right.
Think of it like upgrading a computer system.
Okay.
You can have the most cutting-edge software, but if you try to install it on outdated hardware, the whole thing crashes.
Right.
And it's the same thing with social systems, right?
So it's like trying to force a plant to grow faster.
Yes.
By pulling on its stem.
I love that analogy.
You're just going to damage it.
Yeah,
Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
To illustrate this, Greene talks about Thomas Cromwell.
Okay.
Key figure in Henry VIII's court.
Right.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Ambitious.
Yeah.
Drove to reform England.
Right.
He spearheaded the break with the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Dissolved monasteries. Introduced Protestant doctrines.
Right.
Did all this incredibly quickly. ignored the deeply ingrained beliefs and traditions of the English people.
And that backfired, right?
It did.
Yeah. Rebellion.
Yes. Massive unrest led to his downfall.
Right.
He underestimated the power of the status quo
Right.
and the emotional attachment people have to familiar ways of life.
It's like that old saying,
Yeah.
best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
Change, even when it's necessary,
Well,
has
you're
to
right.
be digestible.
It has to be digestible. You can't shove it down people's throats.
Right, exactly.
And Greene makes this interesting comparison to Machiavelli
Okay.
and his observations on the Roman Republic,
Uh-huh.
transitioning from a monarchy.
Right.
The Romans were masters of disguising change,
Okay.
maintaining those rituals and symbols
Yeah.
that evoked the old order
Right.
while subtly shifting the power dynamics.
So it's like those new and improved products
Yes.
that are basically the same thing.
Basically the same, different packaging.
Yeah, people are more likely to accept change if it feels familiar.
Exactly. So it's understanding the psychology of change,
Uh-huh.
respecting the need
Yeah.
for gradual adaptation,
Right, right.
but also mastering the art of persuasion,
Okay.
leading people gently
Yeah.
in the direction you want them to go
Right. So you're not triggering their resistance.
without triggering resistance. Yeah.
Right. This makes me think of
Yeah.
leaders who try to force their vision
Oh, yeah.
on others
Yeah.
without taking the time to
Build consensus.
build consensus. Yeah. Doesn't usually end well.
It doesn't.
It's sad.
Rarely.
Yeah.
So Law 45 reminds us that lasting change often happens incrementally, subtly,
Right.
almost imperceptibly.
Yeah.
It's a good lesson for anybody who
Yeah.
seeks to influence others,
Okay.
whether in your personal life, professional endeavors,
Yeah.
even on a larger scale.
Yeah. It's making me rethink my whole approach to change in my own life.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder.
Maybe I need to be a little more patient,
Yes.
strategic.
Less of a bull in a china shop.
Right. Less of a bull in a china shop.
Right. Sometimes subtlety wins the day.
Okay.
Speaking of subtlety, our next law touches on a delicate aspect
Okay.
of human nature.
All right. Lay it on me.
Okay, Law 46. Never appear too perfect.
Never appeared too perfect. Okay, now that sounds kind of counterintuitive, right?
Right.
Because we're told to always strive
Yes.
for excellence.
Be the best version of yourself.
Right.
But Greene argues that there's a hidden danger in appearing too flawless.
Okay.
It can trigger envy, resentment,
Okay.
even sabotage. It's like the tallest poppy gets cut down first.
Right. So it's not rejecting excellence. It's just understanding that
Yeah.
perfection can be threatening to others.
Threatening, 100%. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. He tells the story of Joe Orton and Kenneth Halliwell,
Okay.
lovers and collaborators in the world of theater. Orton's career takes off,
Right.
while Halliwell languishes.
Yeah.
Consumed by envy,
Yeah.
he ends up committing murder-suicide.
Wow.
It's a chilling example of
Yeah.
how unchecked envy can just destroy
Yeah.
lives, relationships.
That's a heartbreaking story.
It is. It is.
Makes you think about
Yeah.
the dark side of ambition
Yes.
and how success can sometimes breed envy
Yeah.
from those closest to us.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that navigating these power dynamics,
Yeah.
it's more than just talent and skill.
Right.
It requires a deep understanding of human psychology.
Right.
And Greene suggests a few strategies
Okay.
to mitigate this envy.
Yeah.
Strategically downplaying your achievements,
Mm-hmm.
attributing your success to luck,
Okay.
even revealing a harmless flaw or two.
All right. So like a humble brag.
A humble brag, yeah. You acknowledge your success,
Yeah.
but you do it in a way that disarms potential envy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Oh, I got lucky with that promotion.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
I was totally surprised.
Right. So you're managing perceptions.
You're managing perceptions. Yes.
Yes.
And you're using vulnerability
Right.
to your advantage.
To enhance your power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Make yourself seem less threatening.
This is giving me a whole new perspective on how to present myself.
I know. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe I should stop trying to be perfect all the time.
Right. Yeah, maybe. Okay, what's our next law?
Okay, let's dive into a law that's particularly relevant, I think, in
Okay.
our achievement-obsessed culture.
Okay.
Law 47. Do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop.
Ooh. Okay, I like that. So this is a cautionary tale
Is
about getting carried away by success.
100%. Greene argues that the moment of victory
Right.
can be the most dangerous
Okay.
because it's when we're most susceptible to overconfidence, hubris.
It's like you're winning a hand of poker,
Yeah.
and then you immediately bet
Yeah.
everything you've got on the next one.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can lose it all.
Yeah, you can lose it all very quickly.
And to illustrate this, Greene tells the story of Cyrus the Great.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliant military leader.
Right.
Built a vast empire.
Mm-hmm.
But after a string of victories, Cyrus makes a fatal decision.
Okay.
He decides to conquer the Massagetes,
Right.
this fierce, nomadic tribe
Yeah.
led by Queen Tomyris.
Didn't he end up getting his head chopped off
He did.
and dunked in
a wineskin filled with blood?
wineskin of blood? Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
one.
Yes.
Right.
It's gruesome.
Yeah.
But it's a reminder
It's a good reminder.
that even the most powerful leaders
Yeah.
can fall prey to arrogance and overreach.
That's not a lack of ambition or skill. It's just
Yeah.
not knowing when to stop.
Not knowing when to stop. His inability to consolidate his gains. Right.
Enjoy his victories.
And just enjoy. Yeah.
He kept pushing,
Yeah.
kept striving.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it cost him everything.
So knowing when to stop is as important as knowing when to start.
Knowing when to start, yeah.
Mm.
This law isn't about rejecting ambition
Right.
or settling for mediocrity.
Right.
It's about understanding that there are times to advance, times to consolidate,
Right.
times to push forward, times to retreat,
Right. Makes me rethink my whole approach to goal setting.
to goal setting.
Yeah. Maybe I need to be more mindful
Yeah.
of when to celebrate my wins.
Yes. Savor what you've achieved.
Favor.
Instead of constantly chasing the next big thing.
Constantly chasing, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A little reflection can go a long way.
Right.
Now for our final law in this section.
Okay.
Are you ready to dive into a concept that really challenges
All right. Bring it on.
our traditional notions of strategy?
Okay.
Law 48. Assume formlessness. Assume formlessness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
That sounds intriguing, but a little abstract.
Little abstract.
Yeah.
So think of it this way.
Okay.
We often approach challenges with a fixed plan, right?
Right.
Rigid structure,
Uh-huh.
predictable set of moves.
Right.
But Greene argues that in the realm of power,
Yeah.
that rigidity can make you vulnerable.
So being adaptable,
Yes.
like a chameleon.
Like a chameleon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Blending into their surroundings.
Yeah.
Because if you have a fixed form,
Right.
a predictable pattern,
Right.
your opponents can easily study you, anticipate your move,
Right.
outmaneuver you.
Yeah.
But if you're constantly shifting,
Yeah.
adapting, becoming like water,
Right.
you're much harder to pin down.
Okay. I can see that. How do you put that into practice, though?
It is a bit esoteric,
Yeah.
but Greene offers some great historical examples. He talks about T.E. Lawrence.
Right. Lawrence of Arabia.
Lawrence of Arabia, yeah. His guerrilla warfare tactics
Right.
during the Arab Revolt.
Uh-huh.
His strategy was all about being elusive,
Right.
using the vastness of the desert to his advantage.
Right.
Striking unexpectedly, then disappearing.
So using the environment,
Therefore, the situation
it's almost to create this sense of
Yes.
formlessness,
formlessness.
where the opponent can't quite grasp
We don't know what you're doing.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
He also points to another fascinating example.
Okay.
Baron James Rothschild
Okay.
built a financial empire
Uh-huh.
in 19th century Europe,
Right.
navigated a climate that was hostile to foreigners,
Right.
a series of political upheavals,
Right.
by adapting to
Yeah.
each new regime,
Yeah.
never becoming too attached
Yeah.
to any particular ideology or faction.
So being politically savvy.
Yes, reading the room, adjusting his approach
Right.
based on the prevailing winds of power.
Rather than clinging
Yeah,
to these rigid beliefs.
right. So Rothschild understood
yeah.
that in the game of power, flexibility is key,
Flexibility is key.
while others were ruined
Right.
by their rigid attachments
Yeah.
to the past.
The past.
He thrived
Uh-huh.
by embracing change.
Adapting. It's a powerful lesson
Yeah.
in survival, resilience.
It's like that Bruce Lee quote,
Yes.
"Be water, my friend."
Be water.
Right.
Adapt to the container.
Right.
Flow around obstacle.
Yeah, be unpredictable.
Be unpredictable.
Yeah.
So assuming formlessness,
Right.
it's about cultivating adaptability,
Right.
being flexible in your thinking, your approach,
Uh-huh.
constantly evolving to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah. So being unpredictable,
Unpredictable.
a little mysterious.
A little mysterious, keep them guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see how that'd be incredibly powerful,
It is.
but incredibly challenging.
It is challenging because it requires a lot of self-awareness and letting go of control.
Letting go of control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a skill that takes practice
Yeah.
and willingness to step outside your comfort zone.
Right.
But the rewards can be immense.
Right.
Because by embracing this formlessness,
Yeah.
you gain the ability to surprise your opponents.
Great.
Keep them off balance.
Yeah.
Increase your own power and influence.
This whole concept is making me think differently about.
It is.
It's a mind bender.
Your approach challenges.
It is a mind bender.
Like you said, a mind bender.
It is. But that's what makes exploring these laws of power so fascinating.
Yeah.
They challenge our assumptions.
Yeah.
Push us to think differently.
Yeah.
About how the world really works.
Definitely an eye-opening experience.
I know, me too.
Oh.
I think we need to take a break here.
Yeah, let's take a break.
Okay.
Let all this new information sink in.
Sounds good.
Yeah. We'll be back soon.
Okay.
To continue our deep dive.
Right.
Into the 48 Laws of Power. Stay tuned.
Okay, we're back. And my brain is still kind of buzzing from that whole assumed formlessness thing.
It is a powerful concept.
It really is.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Like we were saying, it's a real paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Letting go of those rigid structures, embracing adaptability.
Yeah.
It can be unsettling,
Yeah.
but it's really key
Yeah.
to navigating
Yeah.
those ever-changing currents of power.
It makes you realize that sometimes the most effective strategy
Yeah.
is to be like a river, right?
Yes.
Find the path of least resistance.
Flow around obstacles.
Yeah.
Constantly adapting to the terrain.
Yeah, constantly adapting. Okay, I'm ready to dive back in.
Okay.
What's next?
Let's explore a law that's all about understanding.
Okay.
The psychology of groups.
Okay.
And how to influence them.
Okay.
It's Law 42. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter.
Okay, I remember we touched on this briefly, but I'm ready to kind of
Go deeper.
refresh my memory.
Yeah.
The whole shepherd-sheep analogy.
Okay. So think of it this way. Every group, whether it's a company, a team, a family, has certain individuals who have this disproportionate influence.
Yeah. Right.
They might not have the official title of leader,
Right.
but they're the ones who set the tone.
Right.
They sway opinions,
Right.
control the flow of information.
Right. Greene calls them the shepherds.
The shepherds, yeah.
Okay, so like those people who are always at the center
Yes.
of the gossip mill.
The gossip mill, yeah.
Or the ones who everyone looks to
yes.
for guidance, even though...
Even if they're not officially in charge.
Right, they're not officially in charge.
That's right.
Yeah. And so his point is, if you want to control a group, sometimes the most effective strategy is to identify and neutralize the shepherd.
Neutralize the shepherd.
Because once they're gone, the sheep will scatter.
Exactly. They lose their direction.
Right.
Become easier to control.
Right. And he uses the example of ostracism in ancient Athens.
Ostracism, yes.
To illustrate this.
So Athenian citizens could vote to banish anyone they perceived as a threat to the city's unity.
Right, even if that person hadn't...
Even if they didn't break any laws.
Broken any laws.
Yeah. It was a way of removing individuals who were seen as disruptive, divisive.
Regardless of guilt or innocence.
Regardless. And you know what's fascinating is that they ostracized Aristides.
Right. Known for his fairness.
For his fairness.
Yeah.
Themistocles, brilliant general.
Right.
It wasn't about punishing bad behavior.
Right.
It was about
preemptively
removing these potential sources of instability.
So interesting how that played out.
Yeah. It's
in Athenian society.
It is interesting.
Right. And eventually, the practice of ostracism declined, right?
It did.
After they tried to ostracize this guy named Hyperbolus.
Hyperbolus, yes.
Who was basically a fool.
Basically a fool.
Right.
Not a real threat.
And they realized they'd taken it too far.
They took it too far.
Yeah. So it's a reminder that this law,
yes,
like all of them,
like all of Greene's laws,
has to be applied strategically.
Yes.
With an understanding of the nuances of the situation.
Nuance is so important.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
But the core principle remains true.
Right.
Understanding who really holds sway within a group.
Yeah.
That's crucial.
Yeah.
For anyone who seeks to exert influence.
And to bring this into a modern context.
Yes.
He draws a parallel.
Yeah.
To Dr. Milton H. Erickson.
Oh, yeah.
His approach to family therapy.
Yes. Fascinating.
Okay. How so?
Well, Erickson often found that isolating the troublemaker within a family, even symbolically, could really shift that power dynamic. Allow for healing to occur.
So by removing the source, disruption, the family system could rebalance.
Find a healthier equilibrium.
So it's not about literal banishment, exclusion. It's about understanding the dynamics of influence. Within any group. And sometimes addressing the root cause of a problem involves identifying and neutralizing. The shepherd.
Great insight. For anyone who works in teams, manages employees, or just wants to navigate social dynamics more effectively.
This is making me rethink.
I know, it's fascinating.
How I view leadership. Influence. It's not always about being the loudest voice.
It's not the loudest voice, no.
It's about
understanding where the power truly resides.
Understanding where the power resides,
and how to leverage it strategically.
This has been such an incredible journey.
It has been fun.
Through the world of power dynamics.
Absolutely.
I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding.
Me too.
Of how power operates both on a personal level and a larger societal level.
It's been a pleasure exploring these concepts with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, it's important to remember, knowledge is power. But it's the application of knowledge that truly matters.
Right, exactly. Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power.
It's been a good one.
I want to encourage all of our listeners to reflect on these laws. Think about how they operate in your own life. And to make conscious choices. About how you want to wield power. For your own benefit. But for the benefit of others.
And the benefit of others, Use your power wisely. Ethically. And responsibly.
That's a great note to end on.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, folks.
Yes, thank you.
We'll be back next time with more fascinating explorations.
Absolutely.
Of the human condition.
More to come.
Until then, stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay engaged. And keep seeking knowledge.
Keep seeking,